There were 7 different railroads serving the city, and they had been built at different times by different people. And so if you were going from Dayton to Atlanta, you probably had to change trains here. And if you had to change trains, you had to change station. So there was a need for one central station serving these 7 railroads, but the city and the railroads couldn't decide on where a new station should be built, and they negotiated with the railroads, and this site was selected to build new stations. So construction started here in August of 1929. It was a 4-year project. It was completed in March of 1933. So this building, the museum center's only been here 32 years. But this building is 90 years old this year. There was a lot more to this project than just this building you're standing in. They had to acquire 287 acres of land for the rail yards. There were 21 other structures on the property beside this building. A little bit about the architecture of the building. They put plaster walls on the inside and decorated them with artwork. They could save some money, and that suggestion was adopted. The architectural firm that designed the building was out in New York City. They were experienced. They had designed other railroad terminals, including Grand Central Terminal in New York City. So they drew from their experience in these other buildings in designing this one. They had a consultant who was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, who was an aficionado of Art Deco. This building is a classical Art Deco building. So bright colors, curved surfaces, symmetry, indirect lighting. Once this idea of decorating the inside of the building with artwork had been accepted, the company sought proposals, and a proposal came in from a company called the Ravenna Mosaic Company out of New York City. And they made a proposal to decorate the interior of the building with 23 murals that would be distributed throughout the building. And they commissioned an artist by the name of Vinold Rice. And Mr. Rice created original artwork for the murals. It's the evolution of the United States, starting with its Native American beginnings and continuing up to the industrial age as it was in 1933 when this building was completed. The Ravenna Mosaic Company did something unique here that hadn't been done before. There are 2 ways you can put murals on a wall. You can paint a picture on a plaster wall, or you can have mosaics. These murals are a combination of those 2 techniques. The figures, which are 12 foot high, are entirely mosaic. But a lot of the background you see, the blues and the greens and the grays, the browns, are just colored stucco, and that sort of gives it a 3-dimensional effect. This was the first place that had ever been tried. But in that concourse that went down to the train gates that was right behind us here, there were another 21 murals. 14 of them were on the side walls. It was very beautiful, and it had these 14 murals on the side walls were positioned between the train gates. So downstairs, I told you they tore down the back of the concourse in 1974. The citizens of Cincinnati expressed very strongly to the city that they wanted to save those murals. They didn't want them destroyed. So 14 murals on the side walls, all of which depicted Cincinnati industries as they existed back in the 30s, were moved to the Greater Cincinnati Airport in 1974. More recently, the 2 older terminals at CVG have been torn down, and 9 of the 14 murals were moved a second time, and they're now on the exterior of our convention center in downtown Cincinnati. The only mural that didn't get saved was the mural that was across the back wall of the concourse. It did not get saved. It's the only one that got destroyed. Nobody could figure out a place that was large enough to accommodate it. It was 180 feet across and about 12 feet high. Even if they had found a location, it would have been extremely difficult and expensive to move it. So this mural on your right similarly depicts the evolution of the city of Cincinnati. The city was founded in 1788, and so the early part of the city's history is on the right side of the mural, and then it evolves over to the left side of the mural, which shows what the city was like in 1933. But because trains were the primary mode of intercity transportation, this facility was designed to handle 200 trains a day. That probably would have never been realized if it had not been for World War II. But during World War II, this became the second busiest rail hub in the United States. And during the war, the number of trains and passengers was actually double what the building had been designed to handle. So during the war, we had like 400 trains a day, and on some days, as many as 34,000 people came through this building. But at the end of the war, passenger rail traffic dropped off very rapidly. In 1972, Amtrak, who was the only remaining passenger operator, moved out of here. They moved about a mile from here and built a very small station. One of the freight railroads wanted to repurpose these boarding platforms for freight use, and they were just starting to use these large shipping containers that you see on trucks and on trains. And on trains, they sometimes stack those containers too high. Well, they wouldn't fit underneath this concourse. So the Southern Railway wanted to purchase the back end of the building here and tear it down so that they could repurpose those tracks. There was pressure brought on the city government to save the building. So the city government purchased 16 acres of the original land in 1975. So now the city owned it and had no clue what they were going to do with it. They actually advertised in national publications. They offered to lease it for $1 a year to anybody that made a really serious proposal. But finally in 1980, a proposal was accepted from a developer out of Columbus, Ohio, who proposed turning it into a sort of urban shopping center. It was a placeholder, had kept the building standing for another 5 years. Two of the museums that are in the building today pre-existed in Cincinnati. They had outgrown their space. They were looking for additional space. Gradually it all came together and the museum center opened in 1990. After the museum center opened, Amtrak moved back here, which is their waiting room for one train a day that serves Cincinnati.